السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وأرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اجتنابه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه وأدخلنا برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين آمين يا رب العالمين. So when you think of something else you forget, subhanallah. طبعا we continue our halqa series on the Fiqh of Financial Transactions from Kitab Akhsar al-Mukhtasarat. And for those who are joining us today for the first time, Akhsar al-Mukhtasarat is the most abridged version of a beginner book in fiqh in the Hanbali madhab. Okay, and the book I have with me here, this is not the actual text, this is the explanation of the text. The text is literally like really small. This is just an explanation of one of the contemporary scholars, Sheikh al-Quaimi. So, alhamdulillah, we are now in Fiqh al-Buyur. By the way, if you can see the book, we're like halfway. And so, we're halfway through the Sharia. Alhamdulillah. So, last week we covered the topic of Riba. صح? We covered the topic of Riba. طبعا that's a huge topic, and we didn't go into the philosophy of why the Sharia prohibited riba because we don't have time for that. We're trying to go through the fiqh. So let's do some review, inshallah, so we kind of sticks and we don't forget everything. The first question is, what are the two types of riba in general? We said there are, in general, two kinds of riba. We can. Before that, I said in general, okay, we have riba al-buyu' wa riba ad-duyun, right? Yeah, this is important to know. We have riba that comes from sales and riba that comes from what? From loans, okay? Riba al-buyu' wa riba ad-duyun. Riba ad-duyun is what you have to deal with in mortgages and right? There's a loan and there's interest on it. Tamam? Credit card, what are you doing in a credit card? You're borrowing money and then they're going to charge you interest on late payments, right? If you don't pay it back in time. So that's riba ad-duyun. He doesn't talk about riba ad-duyun because riba ad-duyun is very obvious. It doesn't need, yeah, it's very obvious. Everybody knows how it works pretty much. Then there's the riba of sales. Tamam? This is what he was talking about. Like within the riba of sales, those are the two kinds you mentioned. So riba ziyada or riba al-fadl and riba al-nasi'a, riba of delaying, right? Riba of delaying. Remember the hadith of Ubadah ibn Samit? He mentioned, right, that has to be, there has to be equality, okay? So if you don't have equality when you're selling the same thing, then you're going to have riba al-fadl or ziyada. Fadl is something to be extra. Tamam? Can someone give me an example of riba al-fadl? Yeah, so someone trades like, a kilo of sukkari dates with half a kilo of sukkari dates, right? Can you do that? No, because they're not equal. You can't do that, right? And of course, it has to be in the right. Can you trade 100 grams of gold for 50 grams of gold? No, you can't, right? Because there's ziyada here, so this would be considered riba. طيب. So we said riba al-fadl. What is riba al-fadl? We said riba al-fadl is when there's ziyada, extra, excess, right? Okay, it has to be equality. What is riba al-nasi'a? To delay. Yeah, delaying the actual qabd, right? So like what's an example of that? Let's stay with the same examples. We did 100 grams of gold for 100 grams of gold. Is that okay? Is that halal? Yes. Halal. طيب. What if one of them says, I'll give you 50 now and 50 next week? Now it's riba nasi'a, right? So it has to be on the spot. When does it have to be on the spot? If you remember, we said what's the next question? Yeah. What are the 7 categories of riba that was mentioned in the hadith? Let's just try to bring them together. Yeah, so we said there's 2 groups. So we've got from the one group, the small group, is anything that is, the Hanabila said weighed, okay? The majority said muthman, currency, okay? Which is gold and silver. Yeah? الذهب بالذهب والفضة بالفضة. Cool? So that's two. We're missing another. Yeah? طيب, then we have bur, sha'ir, milh, right? What did he mention? Bur. Huh? Dates. نعم. التمر. Yes. Bur, sha'ir, milh, tamar. That's it, right? Huh? طيب. المهم, you guys get the point. So we now we grouped them together like that. Why? Because we said that the two kinds of riba, riba al-fadl or riba al-nasi'a, when it comes to riba al-fadl, any of those within the same group, okay, you can trade between them. Okay, you can trade between them. So, مثلا, dates with salt, you can trade in different weights. There doesn't have to be equality if it's two different things. Dates with salt. Dates with dates, you have to make sure they're the same weight, same volume, or same weight, right? طيب, what if you're doing dates with salt? Do they have to be the same weight? No, of course not. Okay. طيب, but do they have to be yadan biyad, on the spot? Yes. So anything within the same group has to be on the spot. Okay. When can you forget about all the rules? Pretty much when you go from one group to the other. Salt with gold, silver with dates. That's when you can drop all the stipulations, which is equality and on the spot. Yeah, this was kind of the summary of what we talked about. And then we talked about things that are not even in the category of riba. Things that are not analogous to these six, right? So things like what? Like a car. Yeah, a car is not a makil. It's not something that's volume, that's sold by volume, right? And it's not something that, and then there's things that were gray areas. Some of the ulama, they're like, oh, we don't know. This is something, and sometimes there's some things that are sold by count, like pomegranates and, I don't know, batikh, dillah, whatever you call it, watermelon, okay? Do they count as these? Some said no, some said yes, depending on their illah that they put. طيب. How are they divided? We said there's two parts depending on their illah. طيب, Jamil. So that's kind of a quick summary of what we covered last week on the concept of riba. Today we have interesting chapter, probably the first time in your life that you heard about this topic, which is بيع الأصول والثمار. When we say usul, can you think of what usul means? Usul, not usul al-fiqh. The word usul in Arabic means what? Huh? Ahsant. Usul in English we will say primary assets maybe. Okay, so yeah, because when we look at some assets, we have some primary and secondary. So usul, they say things that have furu', they have secondary things with them. Like what? Like if you sell a car, are the tires part of the car? Yeah, like if you sell a car, if you buy my Honda Civic, okay, I don't have a Honda Civic, but if I have a Honda Civic and I sell it to you, and then when you come pick it up, there's no tires. Like, is that normal? No, right? So there's some things that are expected that if I sell this, but if I sell a home, yeah, those who want to buy a home or sell a home, like, what do I get to keep? Like furniture? Do I get to keep the furniture? The ACs? Like, what about the doors? What if the guy like sells me the house and he took all the locks, all the light bulbs? Huh? So this is what this chapter kind of talks about. So the usul, طبعا he's going to give examples about like trees and fruits. Anybody here own any like gardens? Huh? Jannat تجري من تحتها الأنهار إن شاء الله الجنة. طيب, so البساتين or bustan basatin, this is probably more relevant for the folks in BC, right? Those who have like basatin and gardens and plantations and stuff. Lakin, yeah, the other part talks about thimar, yani fruits basically. Okay, so let's go through inshallah. Right, I know there are some things in fiqh that might not apply to us, but you don't know. One day you're going to buy an acreage and you're going to have like peaches and oranges and stuff. طيب, بسم الله نبدأ. So he says فصل يقول المؤلف رحمه الله فصل في بيع الأصول والثمار. Okay, so he says here, I'm just going to read the footnote, the definition. He says أصول جمع أصل وهو ما يتفرع عنه غيره. Yeah, يعني anything that has something that follows it or is part of it, something secondary to it. And he says والمراد هنا بيع الأراضي, selling land, والدور and homes, والبساتين and gardens. Okay, so when he mentions usul, the primary assets, he's talking about like things like land, homes, and gardens, and anything that is analogous to it. Yeah, if you can think of any contemporary examples like that. And then he says والثمار, ثمار جمع ثمرة وهي معروفة. يعني ثمرة is like the fruit or the vegetables, right? So here we're going to be talking about homes, دور, أراضي, land, الأشجار, trees, fruits, ثمار, الزروع. What's the difference between زروع والثمار? We're going to need some farmers to help us here. What's زروع? Like, is zara something that grows on the tree or on the ground? On the ground, right? So when we talk about zara, okay, something that is that's growing on the ground, kind of. It doesn't have they say it doesn't have a saq. It doesn't have like a trunk or like a tree. Okay. You might say, well, isn't this the same as the other things that we talked about selling? And no, because there's special ahadith the Prophet ﷺ came with when it comes to these things. Okay. طيب. He says here, Bismillah. He says, وَإِذَا بَاعَ دَارًا, and if he sold a home, وَإِذَا بَاعَ دَارًا شَمِلَ الْبَيْعُ أَرْضَهَا. So if someone sold a home, I'm going to just quickly translate, then we're going to go through the notes. وَإِذَا بَاعَ دَارًا, if he sold a home, okay, شَمِلَ, يعني it will include, شَمِلَ الْبَيْعُ, the sale will include أَرْضَهَا, number one. He says it will include its land. Right, like if you sell a house, okay, you're expecting that its land is with it, right? Like if you buy a house, you're not expecting that, the next day you're going to find him there in the backyard. What are you doing there? Oh, I just sold you the home. No, right? This is part of it's understood that this is part of it. وَبِنَاءَهَا, and it's like it's a building and anything that's built on top of it. Jamil. وَسَقْفَهَا. You might say this is obvious, but this is important for the fuqaha to mention. Because the saqf, what's saqf? Huh? Yeah, saqf is the roof. Before, were roofs like attached? Maybe not, right? So maybe even like somebody has like some expensive roof. They're like, oh khalas, I sold you home, I'll take the roof. Take the roof with me. طيب. Maybe some homes have like electronic roofs or something. Oh, Yeah, صح. And then there's it means the سطح قصدك. You mean سطح. السطح is like the rooftop or something like that. وبابا منصوبا. Bab is a door. Mansub, he means that it's not like it's already attached. It's attached, it's screwed in. What's this mean? So if there was a door that's like in the storage, does it come with the house? No. You can take that with you if you want, right? And this reminds us of the story of Banu Nadir, Surah Al-Hashr, right? Subhanallah, when they were told to leave. The Prophet ﷺ, they were gonna, they committed treason, and they surrounded them, right? This is in Surah Al-Hashr, right? And then the Prophet ﷺ, basically out of his mercy, he gave them opportunity to leave. They committed treason, they have the right to be executed. But the Prophet ﷺ, so he told them, take what you need and leave. In some of the narrations said they took even the doors of the house. Like the doors, the windows, and then they ruined everything else, subhanallah. And we see that they do that now, subhanallah. When they enter homes, they ruin them, and Allah al-musta'an. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give our brothers and sisters patience. So منصوبا وسلما ورفا مسمورين. Sulam is like a ladder, okay, and raf is like a shelf, okay. So if the shelf is with the masjid, if they sold us when they sold us this, there used to be a church, and then the shelves are already nailed in, and we come the next day, they're all gone, right? They weren't supposed to take it. But what if the shelves are not in the wall? Yeah, they have the right to take it. So as long as whatever it is, so we're going to talk about the general rule is anything that's kind of attached to the home, it goes with the home. And then he says, وَخَابِيَةً مَدْفُونَةً. For this chapter, I had to get my dictionary. There's a lot of words that are very difficult. What's a khabiya? Anybody know? المدفون, khabiya, yeah, maybe the word goes back to something that is kind of hidden. Madfun is dug, right? Something, huh? You gave me another word that I don't know. What? Khazna, ahsan, khazna, yeah, makhzan. So when you look it up, it's basically in the old days to store water, right, and other things. They would like dig in the floor and they would put these like containers, sometimes pottery, fukhar, other things. Will keep the water cool or whatever, anything else that's they want to store, like a refrigerator kind of thing. So that would be like dug into the ground. So he said, yeah, and that goes with it, yeah. Khabiyatan madfuna, like a buried jar or cask. Then he says, la quflan. Al-qufl is what? Lock. La quflan wa muftahan, and the key. So this doesn't go with it. You can take your key. You can even take the lock. If you want to leave it, you can leave it. وَدَلْوًا. A dalw is like a like a bucket, you know. فَأَدْلَى دَلْوَهُ, you know. You know in the story of Yusuf, alayhi salam, what is it? أَدْلَى دَلْوَهُ, يعني he took his bucket down. Yeah, and then like the Yusuf came out with the bucket, right? So الدلو, and they say وَبَكْرَةً. I think this is bakra with fatha, right? What's a bakra? Huh? Like a pulley, ahsant, mashallah. You got your Arabic down, mashallah. So bakra, yeah, it's like a pulley. You know the pulley they used to kind of get the water out, you know, from the well, from the beer. Yeah. Today is a language class too. وَنَحُوهَا. Yeah, so he's saying these things that are detached, right? You can take them with you. They're not part of the house, okay? So, you know, unless it's agreed that it's a furnished house. Does that make sense? So this is why he's going to say later, unless there's a shart, okay? So unless there's a shart. طيب, let's read. Bismillah. So Bismillah. This chapter specifically deals with rulings related to the sale of the following types of assets: homes, land, trees, slaves. Yeah, slaves will be mentioned as well. Fruits and plantations. And also he'll mention animals in the last slide. طيب. So when a house is sold, the following will automatically be considered part of the deal: the land on which it is built, obviously, the building itself. By the way, what about what's under the land? Huh? In Alberta, what happens here? If there's an oil well, there's oil, huh? It's part of the crown, right? Yeah, the crown takes it. You don't get it. You don't even get anything, صح? Do you get some royalties? Nothing? La hawla. What about in the Muslim countries? You find some gold. Gold is yours? Some oil. Actually, I think he mentions something here. I can't find it, but I was reading in the footnotes. He was mentioning that this is something that is shared amongst the people. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, that's another fiqh issue. You find oil under your land, right? I think in most countries they take it. Yeah, the country seizes it, and that's property of the. So when we say land, it doesn't mean everything under it, just kind of the land. Huh? They pay you? They pay you probably for the house, no?
They force you to sell it.
Yeah, they force you to sell it. Yeah, and you just keep waiting until the price goes really high, and then
I think in Sharia there's a difference. In the court disposal, there's difference. Even for the heir, the ownership of the heir of the house.
Yeah, these are interesting topics. Who owns the heir? Yeah, who owns the...
In some cases, they sell the ownership of a floor. We have it in some of the Islamic.
Yeah, because even like ocean, and who's responsible for the ocean, and who's responsible? These are good questions, because there's a lot of repercussions with that. طيب, let's continue. So we mentioned, so the building itself, obviously, the roof, connected doors, staircase, nailed shelves, any hidden warehouse or depository, like we mentioned, the khabiyat al-madfuna. Basically, anything that is fixed or connected to the house, you can use this as a rule, is automatically included in the sale of the house without it even being mentioned. So why is it important? Because if they're going to go to a judge and he's going to be like, the seller is going to be like, we didn't put in the contract that I have to leave the doors, then the qadi will say, well, no, this is ma'ruf. This is part of it. When you sell a home, the door that's already there, the front door, it's part of the house, right? So the guy doesn't need proof. The other guy doesn't need proof that he didn't put it in the condition. You don't have to put it because it comes with it. That's the whole point of this chapter, okay? So you don't have to stipulate it. But you can stipulate things like, you can add things. You can say, I'm going to sell you the house with the stipulation that I take all the doors. You can stipulate that. And if he agrees, that's fine. But we're talking about the asl. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
In some places, sometimes they have, so for example, some countries, if they sell you the house, the lights are not included. For example, if they sell you a window, it's known that the light is not included, so they can take it out.
So we're going to say that a lot of these things go to the urf. Yeah, because he's telling us about the urf of that time. The urf is the custom, the culture, right? So we have to go to the urf, right? So we have to go back to the urf, to the custom. And there are things that are understood here. And these are the things that were understood before. Like when you hear like lock, nowadays like nobody takes the locks off. Do you take locks off? When I moved, I left the lock on. Depends how expensive it is, huh? Yeah. But if someone took the lock, no one's going to blame them. Huh? Yeah, obviously you're going to change it because you have to change the key, right? Otherwise the old guy is going to come back. Unless it's those key ones. Type. So you say anything that is not to the house and is movable. Such things are not automatically included in the sale of the house. So such things either require a separate new contract. Yeah. So here's exclusion. He mentioned locks, keys, buckets, rollers, right? Anything that is not attached, you'd have to stipulate it in the thing, right? In the contract. You say, okay, I'm selling you the house with the furniture. So okay, we'll add another 5,000. And people do it all the time. Tamam? But it has to be stipulated. Things that are not attached need to be stipulated. طيب. Next we have طيب. And then he says أو أرضا. So he was saying that the أو here is continuous. So إذا باع شمل البيع أرضها. Okay, and then he says أو أرضا يعني أو باع أرضا. And if he sells a land, okay, what happens? أو باع أرضا. If you sell a piece of land, شمل غرسها. So if you sold like an acreage, okay, شمل, it includes غرسها. Al-ghars is whatever you plant, something that is planted, right? He says كل ما له ساق, like a trunk, okay. So he says here, if you sell a land, شمل غرسها, its trees are included. وبناءها, and any buildings in it. So if you sold like an acreage and there's a house in it, guess what? You get the house as well, right? And this is here too, same thing, right? وبناءها لا زرعا. He says not zara'. So zara', we said anything that's like on the ground. So what's he talking about here? لا زرعا وبذره إلا بشرط. So it doesn't include the zara'. Like zara', when we say zara', things like basal, na'na', like mint and all these things that grow on the ground, okay, potatoes and stuff. But here he says, so the things that, like, for example, only grow once, okay? So we're going to talk about now when you sell a tree or something. But when you sell a land and it has, trees in it, okay? If I sell a land, the trees go with it. Everyone agree? Tamam. طيب. What about the fruit on the tree?
It's part of the tree, so it's with them, right?
Okay. Yeah? Anybody else? If I sell you a land and it's got trees, are the fruits with the trees? Huh? So we're going to talk about it. What about, I sell you the land and there's like mint and like, parsley and whatever, cilantro and all these things, and bitinjan, like eggplant. So he's saying here, لا زرعا وبذره إلا بشرط. So he's going to talk about that. The seller, the things that are only like harvested once, and they're like almost done, like they're almost done and they come out and they're like ready, the seller gets to keep. So he can get like one cut, take all the na'na', all the mint he wants, that's there, and then everything after and the seeds and stuff goes to the one who's buying. Does that make sense? Right? And if you think about it, it's fair. Why is it fair? Why is it fair? Yeah, because he's the one who spent money, watched it, shaded it, did all the work, and it's like,
Maybe the price is going to go up.
huh?
The price, the land. Not like land without anything.
No, he's not ripping it off the ground. He's just taking the harvest. Like he's just taking when you grow something, like let's say you have an acreage of corn. Corn grows once, صح? I don't know. I'm guessing. Does corn grow once? No farmers. Nobody know? Nobody can Google it right now? Huh? Once? Once, صح? So let's say he has a cornfield. So that would go. He would take all the corn. If he sold the land, he will take the corn, and then the guy gets the next one and the next because he owns it. تمام? Does that make sense? So he says لا زرعا. One second, let me just finish. البذر is the seeds, right? إلا بشرط, unless he stipulates it. Like they're making a deal, and the guy's like, I want your acreage, but with the condition that I get everything that's already on, all the fruits, all the plantation, everything. Okay, and if they agree, no problem. Okay, the hadith that's important to know in the buyu' that we mentioned, al-Muslimuna ala shurutihim, right? This is hadith Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu anhu, Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, that al-Muslimuna ala shurutihim, that the Muslims are they according to their stipulations. Okay, illa shartan, unless it's a condition that makes halal haram or makes haram halal, those are not accepted, right? This is a hadith that is important in this chapter. So the shurut are there. If you make a shart, a condition or stipulation, then no problem. Okay, and then he says here وَيَصِحُّ مَعَ جَهْلِ ذَلِكَ, and it's still valid. يصح, remember يصح is the word meaning it's valid. Okay, وَيَصِحُّ مَعَ جَهْلِ ذَلِكَ. There's two meanings about this one. The author, he says وَيَصِحُّ مَعَ جَهْلِ ذَلِكَ. He says what he means by this, that it's still valid even if the buyer, like if I'm selling acreage, right, and it's mentioned here that the first cut, it doesn't go with it. So if I'm buying this, if you're buying this land from me and you didn't know that you don't get the actual, the actual fruits that are there right now, he says the transaction is still valid, but in the footnotes he mentions that, but he still has the right to refuse if he finds out later. Okay, to stop the transaction. The other interpretation I heard from other explanations, he says, anyways, we'll explain it from the notes. Type. So he says here, when a land is sold, the following are automatically considered part of the deal. So any trees planted on it, right? When you buy an acreage or land, any trees on it is included. The following are excluded: plants that grow only once and then are cut and they're implanted seeds. Yeah, like we said, like corn and stuff, such plants usually do not have any trunks. However, if the buyer puts in a condition that he will also own all such buried seeds and plants, then it will be considered part of the deal too, because it's not something that's stuck into the ground. Like it's something that someone put, it can grow, it can be moved. It is valid even if the buyer does not know how many such seeds and plants are in the land. Yeah, this is what the other meaning is. وَإِنْ جَهْلَ ذَلِكَ, even if he doesn't know how many are there, and he doesn't have to say exact number. Meaning he can just make a general statement in the contract: I buy this land from you and whatever is planted in it and its seeds, and that's valid. So he doesn't have to specifically say, مثلا, it's cilantro and why is it? Because if the seller took out all the whatever's there, like for example, like potatoes it grows on top or under the ground? Under the ground, right? So yeah, so if you took them out, now there's some of the seeds are still there, right? They'll grow again. Okay. The guy didn't know. He says even if he doesn't know, he doesn't have. If he says he doesn't have to say I'll buy it with the potatoes. What if there's cilantro and other things? It's all included. Tamam. That's the other understanding of وإن جهل نعم مع جهل ذلك. طيب جميل. And then he says and any buildings on it. Yeah, and any buildings on it, that's also included. So if you buy a land, you're expected to get all the trees, and you're expecting to get any buildings that are there. طيب. And then he says here, yeah, وما يجز أو يلقط مرارا فأصوله لمشتر. Al-jaz is like when you cut, right? You know, like mint and other things. You know, they cut it and they put it into like bunches, right? وما يجز أو يلقط, yeah, something that is picked, okay? مراراً, multiple times. Like what are things that grow multiple times? In my old place, I used to grow a lot of mint. It grows like multiple times. You cut it grows again. Cut it, grows again. A lot of rain comes, it grows again, right? And other things like that, like rosemary and things like that. They will grow multiple times. Apples and stuff, but apples is trees. We're talking about what's on the ground. Potatoes, right? They grow again. So, مراراً فأصوله لمشتر. Yeah, so he's saying here, these things that grow many times, okay, then yeah, its usul are for the mushtari, the one who's buying. They go with the land. And then he says, وَجِزَّةٌ وَلَقْطَةٌ ظَاهِرَتَانِ لِبَائِعٍ. That's what we're saying. We're saying that whatever is out and you can see it, that cut, it's for the seller. I'm leaving this place, I can take some mint with me and whatever, like whatever you want, yani, from the vegetables and potatoes or whatever. Okay, ظاهرتان, يعني it has to be there, obvious, right? ظاهرتان لبائع ما لم يشترطه مشتر. As long as there's no shart, there's no stipulation that you can take that. So basically, rulings related to whatever is cut and picked repeatedly from the plants. Yeah, so like clover, fruit, etc. They all automatically belong to the buyer. So, meaning the trees and the actual seeds and stuff. Sorry, the first cut belongs to, the first cut is for the seller, and the actual plant, the actual seeds, the actual trees, they are for the buyer and are part of the deal with the land purchase. However, if at the time of the deal there is something ready to be picked, okay, then it belongs to the seller by default unless the buyer puts in the condition that those two belong to him, right? So, yeah. So if you're selling your land with it's full of peaches and cherries, you can actually pick. You know, you sell it, then you can, according to what they're saying here, you can pick all of them, and then unless it's stipulated that I'm selling you the whole thing with everything in it, okay, and whatever's on the tree is yours as well, okay. طيب. And then he says here, وَمَنْ بَاعَ نَخْلًا. So now we're going to talk about النخل. What's a nakhl? Yeah, palm trees, right? وَمَنْ بَاعَ نَخْلًا. طبعا نخلا because it's very popular in Medina, and whoever sells نخلا تشقق طلعه فالثمر له مبقى إلى جداد. Okay, let's break this up. He says ومن باع نخلا, whoever sells nakhl, like a palm. طبعا if you study like the dates that you eat in Ramadan and stuff, these are coming from where? Huh? From the palm trees, right? The palm trees are very interesting because when you look at palm trees, they, you have a male one and a female one, صح? Correct me if I'm wrong. And the dates grow on the female or the male? Huh? Female, ahsant, good. Now, the female palm trees and the male one, they have something called a tal'. A tal' is in English a spathe. You can look it up. It's called a spathe. It's where, so when the spathe starts opening, in the male one, there's pollen, right? And in the female one, this is where the dates grow. It's kind of like opens. If you leave the female one by itself, either you get really bad fruits, like dates in this case, right, or nothing at all. So what the farmers do is they actually take the pollen from the male and they put it into the female one, and then it grows. Tamam? this is it's it's good information to know. One day you'll own some. So it's a good business, by the way. It's good money. To own some land with palm. But this is not the right weather, Calgary. طيب. So he says here, تشقق طلعه يعني whoever sells a nakhl, a palm tree, and its طلع is open, فالثمر له. So once it's open, that means that what? Because remember we already established that if I sell a land with trees, or if I sell a tree, then whatever is on it is for me, the seller. And then you can keep the tree and everything that comes out of it. Agreed? Like, now someone's going to say, well, when do we know if it's like ready or not? Like, what if it's opening, it's not opening? Okay, you can imagine there's going to be a lot of fights, a lot of arguments. So here the fuqaha, they said, how do we determine when it's for the seller, when it's for the buyer, and when it's for the seller? He says, whoever sells a palm tree and the طلع, the spathe, تشقق فالثمر له. So now that it's open, okay, it means that it's like time for it's almost time for it to grow. Then it's for the seller. Okay, so if you're selling a land and the spathe is open, okay, then the thamar, the actual dates or the fruit is for you. مبقا إلى جداد. مبقا يعني it remains there until jidad. Jidad means al-jidad is removal, al-qata'. So what's he saying? Because okay, if I'm selling you my land, tamam, it's got palm trees, okay, and the spade started opening. So now who does the dates belong to? The seller, okay, Jimmy. طيب, I sold you the land, you take over, and what happens now? Do I have to like rip them off right now? No, but they're not ripe yet, right? So he's saying you leave them there until it's time to take them. Okay? So they stay there, مبقا إلى جداد. Okay? ما لم يشترطه مشتر. Again, as long as there's no stipulation. If the buyer says, hey man, I want your palm trees and everything on it, and you say, sure, then khalas. But if none of that is mentioned, then the seller gets to keep it as long as it started opening, okay, and it's about to actually grow. ما لم يشترطه مشتر. So whoever sells a date palm tree that is ready for pollination, right? Ready for pollination meaning the female one opened and the male one opened, okay? And its fruits are either ready or almost ready, then its fruits belong to the seller. Thus are not automatically considered part of the contract. If the fruits have not yet come out, then its future fruits automatically belong to the buyer. Tamam? Yeah, so obviously the opposite means that if it didn't open and there's no fruits there apparent, then everything after that is for the one who's buying, obviously because he owns the tree and the land. But if the buyer makes it condition, then it all belongs to him. Yeah. Tamam? That's what we just said. If there's a stipulation. Now he says here, وَكَذَا حُكْمُ شَجَرٍ. And the same is the ruling for trees. So other trees, okay, not just palm trees. وَكَذَا حُكْمُ شَجَرٍ. And the same ruling, okay, is for trees. فِيهِ ثَمَرٌ بَادٍ. Okay, فِيهِ ثَمَرٌ بَاد. Thamar bad meaning it's like ready to be eaten. It's like ripe. It's ripening, right? Yani it's coming out. You can see the fruit coming out. Okay, like you're selling an apple tree, and the apple is there. It's just small, but it's there. Or you have a cherry tree, and the cherries are there, but okay, they're not fully ripe, but they're there. They're out. أو ظهر من نوره. النور. نور. What is it? Like a flower, أحسنت, ما شاء الله, good. نوره يعني زهرة, maybe زهرة like the flower, right? He says أو ظهر من نوره كمشمش. مشمش معروف المشمش؟ مشمش? Apricot, right? Yeah, المشمش الapricot, right? So the apricots, first there's like a flower, right? Like it kind of, if it's showing, then it's for the seller. Okay? It's for the seller. Because now it's obvious that the fruits are coming. أو خرج من أكمامه كورد وقطن. Or there's an akmam. Akmam is like a cover, like something that is closed, and it opens. Yeah, it opens like that, like cotton. If you ever seen cotton, it opens like that. If it opened, خلاص, now it's for the seller. Yeah, so the buyer has to wait for the next, for the next round. Okay, like any flowers or cotton. وَمَا قَبْلَ ذَلك. Yeah, وَمَا قَبْلَ ذلك, and whatever is before that, obviously. وَالْوَرَقُ مُطْلَقًا لِمُشْتَرٍ. Al-waraq is what? Leaves. Type. He's saying the leaves are for who? For the buyer. So there's no circumstance where the seller can take off all the leaves. And regardless if he needs it or not or whatever, the leaves are always for the buyer, not for the seller. Tamam? So he says here, the same rule applies to all trees whose fruits are apparent and can be seen. The following cases also fall under this rule. So plants that start off as flowers and then transform into fruit, if the fruit begins to appear from the flowers, they belong to the seller, unless the buyer puts it explicitly in the contract, of course. Yeah, we said like apricots. Plants that start off folded and then open up, akmamiha, and then they open up. If the plant has begun to be unfolded and the fruit in it begins to appear, then it belongs to the seller, again, the one who's selling, unless the buyer puts it explicitly in the contract, like cotton. Tamam, like cotton. طيب. And then he says here, ولا يصح بيع ثمر قبل بدو صلاحها. بدو الصلاح, this is mentioned a lot. So بدو الصلاح, صلاح is when it's ripe. Okay? So he's saying لا يصح بيع ثمر قبل بدو صلاحه. Why are they saying this? Because what they used to do is they used to go to the farmer and they would say, I'm buying like everything that comes out of this tree. Okay? Type. Well, you might say, well, we don't like, how do you know anything's going to grow? What's the word? There's a lot of unknown, right? There's a lot of what? What's the word? Gharar, right? There's a lot of gharar. And we said gharar is one of the things that make, or one of the main things that the Sharia wants to avoid in transactions. Gharar, we said, means what? Huh? لا مش cheating. Huh? Uncertainty, something that is uncertain, unknown. Yeah, uncertainty, right? So the Sharia does not like to be gharar. A little bit of gharar might be okay, but in general, gharar is haram, right? So anything that has gharar fahish would be haram. So if someone looks at a tree and be like, I'll pay you this much for everything that comes out of this cherry tree, and there's like nothing there, nothing has grown. It's like it's not season, right? He's telling you this in December. I don't know, like there's no. Is that allowed? He says no. He says ولا يصح بيع ثمر قبل بدو صلاحها. You're not allowed to sell it until budu salah starts. Like you start to see the cherry, you start to see the apricot, you start to see the peach. Okay, then you can sell it. Okay, and so once it's clear, because now there's not much gharar. You know that this is going to grow, and you can sell everything that comes out of this tree for this price, whatever, and he can pick it up after it's actually fully ripened. Okay. Yeah. So he says here, ولا زرع, okay, ولا زرع قبل اشتداد حبه. Even whatever is on the ground, okay, until it is like knowledge, it's like it looks cooked and it's almost ready. Okay. So you cannot be like, I'll sell you whatever comes out of this, and there's nothing that that's coming out. Because what's the problem? You can see a problem here, right? I like to go to BC every year. So sometimes you go there. Like last year I went there, and they're like, oh, this year there's no peach. Oh, this year we didn't get good rain and there was no whatever, right? So imagine somebody went and told the guy, I'm gonna pay you this many $1,000 for all the peaches from your bustan, from your land, right? And then the weather, there's no rain, something happens, I don't know, there's a parasite infestation, مش عارف, okay, and then the guy loses his money. You see the problem? So there's too much gharar, there's too much uncertainty, okay? And then here he says here لغير مالك أصل أو أرضه إلا بشرط قطع إن كان منتفعا به وليس مشاعا. So here he's gonna mention 3 exceptions. So the rule is, know the rule and then we'll talk about the exception. The rule is you cannot sell what's on a tree, okay, until it starts to ripen, it starts to come out, okay, tamam. Now there's exceptions. The 3 exceptions he says here. Number 1, if you sell it to the owner, How does that make sense? If you're selling it to the owner. Huh? Huh? I'm the owner? The new owner. صح, the new owner, or you're renting it. Like some people rent the land, مثلا. Okay? Yeah, the owner, or the owner of the tree or the whatever. Some people like loan like you pay for rent, right? You pay rent for the land or even for the trees. I think some people do that as well. So he says here, أن يباع الثمر الذي لم يبدو صلاحه لمالك الشجر والنخيل أو يباع الزرع الذي لم يشتد لمالك الأرض. Yeah. So yeah, if it's for the owner, that's an exception. You can sell it to him, okay? Because it's his land, he knows the land. You know, there's not, the al-Gharar is gone way down. Does that make sense? There's much less Gharar, okay? And then he says the second reason, the second exception, إذا اشترط قطعه في الحال and there's a منفعة. Okay? طيب. What if there's a benefit for like things that haven't ripened yet? Okay, so something that hasn't fully come out, fully ripened, the rule is that you can't sell it yet, okay? But here he says you can sell it if there's a benefit, but you have to cut it on the spot. So what do you mean? Like some people will use it as alaf or alaf. What's alaf in English? Like the food you give for animal, for your livestock, right? So sometimes, you can give them the things before they're ripened, right? So if there's a benefit for it, okay, you can sell it as long as it's cut on the spot. Why cut on the spot? Why do you think that's put there? So there's no gharar, ahsant. Yeah? So there's no uncertainty. Okay? So you sell it to them, obviously it's going to be at a cheaper price. Okay? But with the condition that it's cut on the spot. So that's the second exception. So if you sell it to the owner, or there's benefit from it and you cut it on the spot. And then he says, إِذَا بَاعَ مَعَهُ أَصْلُهُ. If he sells it and if you sell the fruit and the tree with it, then you're allowed to do that. Okay? So مثلا, I'm the owner and I sell fruits. And some guy comes and says, hey man, I want whatever's on that tree. And then you're like, oh, well, I can't, man, because it hasn't shown. يعني ما في بدو صلاح, it hasn't really come out yet. He said, you know what? What if I buy the whole tree? Okay, خلاص, you can sell the fruits with the tree, right? Because the fruits were going to be the sellers, right? Remember we said that? It's that the ones that are coming out, it's the sellers. So he can sell that with the tree. That's okay, because that guy now he has full control of the tree. Okay, that's what he's talking about here. So let's read here. Actually, let me finish the sentence here. وكذا, he says, وكذا بقل ورطبة ولا قثاء ونحوه إلا لقطة أو مع أصله. Okay, so what's he saying here? He says the same rule here for the baql. A baql is anything that grows on the ground and is green. Alpha and all that stuff, clovers and stuff. So وكذا بقل, okay, ورطبة, similar thing, right? ولا, so those things, same ruling that we just mentioned, okay? We said that the owner, okay, if it's ripened, okay, you can sell it. If it's not ripened, you can't sell it, with the exception, okay, with the exception. The same exception and the ruling is for the baql and the rutba, the things that grow on the ground, like green fodder for livestock. But then he says, وَلَا قِثَّاءٍ وَنَحْوِهِ. Al-qitha'. What's qitha'? قثاء. What's قثاء? قثائها وفومها وعدسها وبصلها. Al-mawz, you saying mawz? Like bananas? No. قثاء is not. They had bananas in Bani Israel, had bananas? I don't think they had bananas. There's some in Surah Al-Waqi', I believe. But what's qitha'? Qitha' is actually it's a cucumber. You know those weird cucumbers that are like long? Huh? No, they call it Armenian cucumber. If you put Armenian cucumber, you'll get it. You ever see it? Like people like to Some shamis like to eat it. I don't know, but يعني, it's you know what I'm talking about. It's that really like it has rough, huh? Spiky, yeah, spiky long, and it's not like straight and nice like the cucumber that you guys eat. So yeah, so وقثاء ونحوه ولا قثاء ونحوه. So that doesn't count. إلا لقطة لقطة. What's he saying here is that the things like qitha that are eaten and sold, okay, like cucumber and stuff, those ones you have to sell them as a bunch, okay? لقطة لقطة يعني as a bunch, okay? You have to sell them as a bunch or with its asl, with its like whole branch and tree, okay? Let's read. So here he says general rule. Today's a farming class. I know it's not the most exciting, but bear with me. You're gonna be farmers one day. You don't know. And if you lose technology, you all have to be farmers. Might as well know the fiqh of it. طيب, the general rule here, or maybe you have an uncle back home, and then he's like, listen, man, I'm gonna give you all my land. You gotta know what to do with it, right? You gotta know what's the value if a buyer comes. طيب, general rule here is that any fruit that appears after purchase of a tree belongs to the buyer by default. We said that, right? However, fruits that have begun to appear, even if not completely before the purchase, are considered separate. Okay? They have begun to appear, but not completely. Hence, they belong to the seller by default unless the buyer makes it part of the condition in the contract that it also belongs to him. Similarly, if a tree is sold in the early stages when its fruits have not yet begun to appear, then they will belong to the buyer by default. Okay? So if they haven't begun to appear, we said it goes to the actual buyer. Leaves always belong to the buyer. We mentioned this last time. Yeah, the leaves always go with the buyer. What we just talked about now, it is not valid to sell fruit on trees by themselves until they are ready for consumption. When we say budu salahiyah, that's what he means. It's ready for consumption. Similarly, it is not valid to sell grains until they are ready for harvest, like rice and corn. You cannot sell it until it's ready for harvest. Okay? So you cannot sell the corn in your field until it's ready. Budu salahiyah. This is in order to keep harmony in the community because it is not guaranteed that the fruit grain will not go bad or become ruined before they are ready. Yeah, so this is one of the ilal, or one of the reasons, yani. So the exceptions is selling the fruits to the owner. We mentioned the 3 exceptions. You sell it to the owner of the tree or the grains to the owner of the land. In this case, even if the fruits and grains are not ready, it is valid. Example, a farmer has a farm on a land that he is renting from someone else. Right? A farmer has a farm on a land that he is renting from someone else. In this case, the farmer can sell the grains before they harvest to the owner of the land. Does that make sense? Okay? So into your land, you're renting a land, you're farming in it, you're growing things. You can sell it before it grows to who? To the owner of the land, because he owns the land and he knows the land very well. There's much less uncertainty. Okay? Selling with the condition to cut it immediately to be used for some benefit. Yeah. If it's not grown yet, but there's a benefit for it, then you can sell it with the condition that it's cut on the spot. Okay? Example, selling it to someone who uses it as fodder. Fodder is the food for the livestock, for his animals. This is provided that the owner of the fruits is not a partial owner. Yeah, he says here, وَلَيْسَ مُشَاعًا. Yeah, I didn't explain that part. As long as it's musha'an, it's not shared with somebody else. Because if it's shared, there's going to be confusion. There's gharar. Nobody knows who owns what. So you have to make sure that you're 100% owner of that. And then he says, it is not valid to sell green vegetables. This is when he says, وَكَذَا بَقْلٍ وَرُطْبَةٌ وَلَا قِثَّاء. It is not valid to sell green vegetables like lettuce, clover, parsley, mint, okra, etc. and cucumbers except pieces by pieces or with its root. Okay? So you have to sell it when it's ready, and you have to sell them like as a whole piece. Meaning when it comes to such plants, we can only sell what has grown and is apparent in front of us. So they don't get the same exception as the other ones. Once they're fully ripe, then you can sell them. Example, you can only sell pieces of cucumber, lettuce, mint that you see grown on plant and not those that will appear in the future. Such types of plants are constantly cut and then they grow back, right? They keep growing. It's not like corn, right? Because corn only grows once. That's why they're giving that different ruling. Whatever has not yet grown cannot be sold because it is categorized as unknown. Yeah, there's too much gharar, there's too much uncertainty. Selling it with its roots means selling the source, the whole tree or plantation, so that whatever grows in the future will belong to the buyer. All makes sense. طيب. Now he says, yeah. The next part we have. How are we doing? Good? Yeah, well, inshallah we'll finish it. طيب. Now he says, وحصاد. No, he says, yeah, وإن ترك ما شرط قطعه بطل البيع بزيادة غير يسيرة إلا الخشب فلا يشتركان فيها. He says, وإن ترك ما شرط قطعه. You know what he's talking about? He's talking about like, if someone sold something, okay, and like I sold like these this lettuce, this much lettuce, or this much mint, or this much whatever, okay. Now the stipulation is that when I sell it to you, you cut it and you take it. And you come to my farm, okay. Anybody here go to BC and actually pick themselves? Anybody done that before? Yeah, fruit picking and stuff. Just you, no, everybody else. It's cheaper, isn't it? If you pick it yourself, it's cheaper, by the way, and it's nice with the kids and stuff. So yeah, if you go to him, he's saying, when you buy it off the tree, like when you buy from the tree, you're supposed to pick it on the spot. So what happens if you leave it for a long time? You're like, oh, I'll come next month. What happens? Either it spoils or more grows. Tamam? So he's saying here, وَإِن تُرِكَ مَا شُرِطَ قَطْعُهُ. If whatever was stipulated to be cut, it's left on the tree, whose responsibility is it? Here they're assuming this responsibility is on the buyer. If I'm buying from the tree, then I'm supposed to what? Pick it myself. Now if I'm buying from the store, no problem. But if I'm buying from the tree, I'm responsible to cut it. The seller is responsible for what? To water it. Okay? So he says, وَإِن تُرِكَ مَا شُرِطَ قَطْعُهُ. If it's left there, بطل البيع بزيادة غير يسيرة. Like if I sold you this area of mint, I said, okay, all this area, it's yours, okay? And you're supposed to cut it, okay? You're supposed to cut it, and then you're like, oh, you know what, I'm busy, I'll come next week. I don't know why the camera's flashing at me, battery or something. The camera's flashing at me, I don't know why, I'm in trouble. If you leave it for a week, it might double, right? So he says, if there's a lot of increase, then the transaction is batil. Batil meaning what? Invalid, right? He says, unless it's something yasir, something small, like an extra piece of mint comes out or whatever, an extra cherry or whatever, okay? He says, then it's allowed. So whenever you buy something from the tree, you have to pick it on the spot, right? So there's no uncertainty. Because if you come next week, you're going to maybe get more. Or maybe, like he said, it might spoil. So there's too much gharar and there's going to be fights. There's going to be disagreements. They say, إِلَّا خَشَب. إِلَّا الْخَشَب. Khashab, what's khashab? Huh? Wood, yeah? What they mean khashab here, they mean like actually like a tree. Huh? Yeah, say إِلَّا الْخَشَب فَلَا. It's not the same ruling. وَيَشْتَرِكَانِ فِيهَا. So if you have like a dead tree, and I come to you, be like, man, I need some firewood. Okay. Oh, it doesn't have to be dead, but just a tree. It's just wood, right? There's no fruits on it. Okay. And you buy it, and then you like, okay, yeah, I'll come. Then you come like 3 months later, and the tree grew, like the wood, the trunk, whatever. I don't know if that's realistic, but let's just hypothetically assume it grows. Then he says, it's okay, that's fine. يصح ويشتركان فيها. Yani the buyer and the seller, they will share the extra growth. And if it grew extra, they will share the extra growth. Okay, the buyer obviously will get what because they said because you can tell. Like if you bought a tree, you can tell how much it grew. I don't know. I think there's still going to be some gharar there. I don't think this is something that's done. Have you ever heard of someone do that? Like buy wood from a tree? Maybe they used to do it back in the day. Now everybody just gets it cut. Or just, no. طيب. But that's what he's saying. He's saying for the khashab it's different. Okay, but the fruit, there's much more uncertainty. Okay? So once a buyer agrees to purchase what is grown and apparent, he must cut and pick it quickly. And if he does not, then it will invalidate the contract if it grows, unless the growth is very insignificant. Tamam? So you need to cut it right away. If you tell him, I want all the cherries of this tree or of this whole plantation, you need to pick it on the spot. Okay? On the spot. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of complications. This is because such plants, lettuce, clover, parsley, mint, okra, etc., grow very quickly, and the net growth, which belongs to the seller and is not part of the deal, will mix with the buyers, thereby making it difficult to distinguish between the two. It makes sense, right? It might double, and then the seller, like, it's not fair for him. That guy's gonna get double what he paid for. It's not fair. Right. There's an exception for wood which also regenerates on a tree. In this case, it is allowed to delay its cut because it grows slowly and is easy to distinguish by measuring. I guess so. You can measure the tree, right? Therefore, both the seller and the buyer have their shares in it, even if it grows after the deal, because they can distinguish the difference. Okay. طيب. Now he talks about al-hasad, right? He says وحصاد ولقاط وجداد على مشتري. So al-hasad is harvesting, and liqat is like to like pick it, and wal-jidad is, I think, to like pull it from the ground. So he's saying these three things, right? Al-hasad is for zara', anything in the ground. Liqat lima yulqat, whatever you can pick. Wal-jidad is to cut the actual fruits from the trees. So he's saying here, these three things, ala mushtarin. So if I buy whatever's on the tree, you know, whose responsibility is to pay for someone to go up and take it is the buyer. Okay, unless you stipulate it and you remember we talked about shurut fil bay'. You stipulate that I'm going to sell you the fruits with the condition that you go up and then you take it. So he's probably going to add an extra $50. That's fine. But the asl, the default is that the buyer, it's his responsibility to go pick it. Okay. Yeah, he says here, على مشتري وعلى بائع, the seller, سقي ولو تضرر أصل. The seller, his responsibility. So if I'm selling you fruits, okay, or vegetables, whatever, my responsibility is just to make sure that I water it. Okay, that I'm